Welcome to the Papi and Chulo show. I am Papi. Chulo is out of service right now, but I am here with one of our first guests.
Gordito Italiano, Anthony Ricci, actually.
Gordito Italiano. Mr. Italiano, tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
I am born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, raised in the tri-state area. My hometown is Weirton, West Virginia, but born in the steel town of Pittsburgh.
How did we come to know each other?
Well, our illustrious nursing careers, actually. Your first position where I was already broken in by some strong female nurses, seasoned nurses, and my friend Junior, Papi, came aboard, and I tried to protect him and show him the ways of the nurse world, the male nursing world.
I think what you learn best there is just roll with the punches. That's probably what a life tactic too. Genetic tactic.
Yeah, how to like survive in where there's a pecking order. Don't upset the mother hen. Don't step on any of the chicks basically. They're underneath the mother hen, and then you learn how to tame them. I was like a Royal Rumble wrestler. I was the last man standing.
Yeah,
we're I'm gonna go from that floor, and you wisened up.
But one thing for sure to mention is, though it was hard knocks, that the floor was tough. It was an acute tele floor. We received post-cath heart patients. And yes, so it was a tough working environment. But these girls also were masters of their trade. These ladies, rather, they were excellent. They were excellent at what they did. Would you agree?
Oh, I mean, they both mean like there was tough love and just like hands-on skills matched with like the knowledge and brought some people skills and humanity to it. And I was blessed to start my career on that floor.
Yeah. And then we took a long hiatus from seeing each other. When I was doing PRN at Lifeline Hospital, I saw you there again. Didn't really know what was going on in your life. But always enjoyed your company. And then what really brought us together, got to start seeing you at a pretty much a weekly basis now at this point, is the Chesterton Cigar Bar downtown in Steubenville, Ohio. I'll say my thoughts on it, and I will hear yours. I love it. I really do. Before then, what did I do on a Monday to Wednesday night? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, I would go to a bar, try to find somewhere fun to go to, talk to people. But I was usually disappointed. Usually people are not either talkative or it's just not well attended because it's Steubenville, Ohio. It's still about it being a town. What about you?
My thoughts on Chesterton. Having a gathering place where there is alcohol consumed. It's bring your own bottle. Myself, I'm sober, so going there and having a social outlet, a diverse group of people where we get to all discuss pretty much any topic, and just you almost develop a fellowship outside of your personal life and family and other friends when everyone gets to know each other. We're there for each other. There's a group text that goes on where everyone checks in and sees how everybody's doing when we're not in person. If someone doesn't show up for weeks at a time, it's like, usually someone reaches out to see what's going on. Yeah, why haven't I seen you this week?
And we've actually already gone through that without having to go too much into it. But yeah, elaborating on Chesterton's, once Chesterton's opened and I became a member, and I would be able to go not only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but whenever I didn't go salsa dancing, also Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it just became an outlet for young bros to go, mingle, BYOB if you wanted it. And you usually get into conversations of everything. You talk about life, you talk about the ups and downs every day, talk about what you're studying, theology, philosophy, whatever, business. And it's usually an environment where you could, you just grow. You just grow, then you laugh. You just act like the boys, too, at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of theology. I've heard a lot of personal stories. I've heard, support when someone needs it. I've heard just generally giving each other crap, like having fun with each other.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, yeah.
And, I'm blessed to be part of it. I got to be in the planning stages of it. The owners brought me in and like they tapped me as being like a local cigar guy, which I say I'm just a cigar smoker with an opinion. I'm really passionate about cigars and the connection that I've experienced through cigars. I always meet unique, interesting people. And I was young. My brother went to Cuba when I was 17 on a trip. He was a student at West Virginia University, and he took 2 courses on Cuban economics and Cuban culture. And then they got together for spring break. Imagine, like the view goes wild in Cuba, in Havana. So he had quite the experience, the stories, and then they got to see Fidel give a speech actually from the town square and film it. So like those were my first exposure to like cigar culture. It was just cool to smoke cigars with my big brother. He brought into his circle of friends when he got back and gifted me a box of Monte Cristos from Cuba.
And that was kind of like
My introduction.
and what a great introduction to it. At that point, or still at this point, anytime you hear Cuban cigars, you think that's like the thing, the old school classic cigar of choice that's high quality and difficult to get. I don't know if that's true today.
Well, this was early 2000s, so the heritage of all these brands, like Monte Cristo, Romeo y Julieta, Cohiba, all those classic brands that there are now non-Cuban versions because they're outlawed after the Cuban Embargo Act, the JFK side. Before he brought in thousands of Cuban cigars for himself and signed this embargo, we couldn't do any business with them. That they've just been the staple for years because it pretty much was born there. But now, like Nicaraguan tobacco, we're both smoking. I gifted you an Aganorsa leaf Habano. So the wrappers grow in Ecuador, and they call it Habano seed. So it's originally a Cuban seed grown in Ecuador for the wrapper leaf on this cigar. And it's all Nicaraguan grown, filler, binder, all the rest of it. It's 2 tobaccos that they grow in Nicaragua. Pretty much all Cuban farmers, Cuban owner, and Cuba's basically operating in Nicaragua now. So 70% of the cigar market's based in Nicaragua.
Nice, dude. Nice. So if you ever swing by Steamboat, check out GK or Chesterfield Cigar Co. And I know random people come to town and always make it a little pilgrimage destination to come just hang out midday, end of the day at the cigar bar. And it's pretty awesome to just meet these random people who just show up there. Also, as a side note, ladies and gentlemen, I live here in, I guess, what's considered the ghetto of Stumba, La Belle Hill. And what's funny is I've had these really cool elderly Latinos that moved catty-corner to me. One day I come here and I park my car, and I hear bachata music in the background. And I'm like, what? Like these Latinos are moving into this town and, taking over the place. And, I'm Latino. And funny story is that they have a hen coop back there, which is cute. They have a hen place. But what wasn't cute is that they got roosters as well. And imagine waking up to roosters. I mean, oh man, these are old school Latinos. Probably, from one is from Puerto Rico, the other one's from the DR, Dominican Republic. And so I was like, yes, we can't have hens like that. You gotta take care of that. And she's like, yeah, I'll take care of it. So she hid the roosters. Like there were 4 roosters. She hid the roosters in her basement for a whole week. And then she whipped them out again. And I'm like, okay, you lied to me. So I called the city on it. Hey, I hate to.
I'm not even going to go there. They whipped out the roosters. You can.
and
you said it. No, I'm going to be polite.
I called the city on them, and the city came, and they took care of things. So that was pretty good.
You called the city on your Latino?
You're awakened. I do not feel bad about it.
Hey, if they were Cuban women, those chickens and roosters would be running around your yard. That foot range in Hialeah.
Well, they built their cages so bad that they actually were roaming around their yards. So you may hear, the point of me telling all this is that you may hear
free range.
You may hear noise in the background. I don't know if they're cutting something in the back. They may even play their bachata music in a bit, but we'll go with the flow. We're enjoying this nice cigar here in the back deck of my house, and we're going with the flow again.
Yeah, when you said bachata, you gave it all away. I knew. Puerto Rican. Yeah. They probably make good mofongo and tostones, and I might have to go meet these women.
I'm not too familiar with the food, but I will say the women are beautiful. That's for sure. That's for sure. My short express. So, there was it's in the hiatus that I didn't see you from working with you in my early 20s to working with you in my late 20s. And I still had no idea what was going on with you in the background. I didn't know that you were starting to be late for work. And then unfortunately, you kind of became the joke of the place for being late. Now, they couldn't joke about you or criticize you for your performance as a nurse, because they would all say you're really good. That's part of the reason as to why maybe Lifeline was super patient with you and gave you chance after chance after chance. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there was this hiatus, and then even when I caught up with you again, worked with you again, day shift, night shift, hard knocks, and I didn't know you were going through a lot of difficult times, let's say, induced by yourself as well. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about your upbringing? And I think you shared that it actually was good and you had mentors. And then what happened? You start wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, so I was raised by a traditional Italian family, like the dominant culture. Half of my family founded West Virginia. The other half, my grandfather, Ennio, came over by boat when he was 16. He actually left the seminary when he was 16 and just decided to make a life change. He had a sibling that was born here in Pennsylvania. His parents had attempted to come over, and then they moved back and dismissed their culture. And then, so his youngest sister, Laura Setapanella, had been born here, so she had dual citizenship. And by the time they moved back to Italy, we're from the Abruzzo region in a village called Liberated. And he had the opportunity to come here, had to save up his money, had to work, had made the life change of leaving the seminary, and then arrived in New York. Him and his sister Margaret came together. So my great aunt and my grandfather came over and landed in Pennsylvania initially, started working, saving money. And then he met my grandmother, another Italian, raised in a coal mining town. And my grandmother, Nita, he met her at his dance hall, and he lied about his age and told her he was like 4 years older because he knew he was still like under 18. And she was probably like 19, 20, and he shot for like 22. And ended up like falling in love like relatively early and coming to the United States. And then got a job opportunity working in the mill, worked his way up from basic laborer to a foreman at Weird Steel Mill.
So that's your family background. I guess I'm more curious as to, like, for you, your development. Let's say, like, you're starting your teenage years. Who were you and where were you at that point?
Well, the reason I was given the background on the grandfather and, my father was raised same environment, hardworking Italian family, all those values. And then him and his dad were killed in 1985 by a drunk driver. We had built apartments over there. I was raised in those apartments, and we were crouched by the pool. And then, my mom was left. She was pregnant with my youngest sister, Justina, and my brother Dante was 5. So, our world was rocked. We had a very solid, like, 2-parent household. That was a major life change. And, it's just hard because I had 3 memories of him. And then you're raised with this legacy of who your father was. Now, the blessing and the silver lining in that tragic story is that my Uncle Dave, my dad's brother, bought the closest house to us. And I was raised with basically 2 households. So, my aunt was a nurse. My uncle was a physical therapist. I had an uncle who's a dentist and a pharmacist, an aunt who's a pharmacist, and an uncle who's a doctor. So everyone in our family is very, very healthcare, patient-oriented. I was raised in a house with medical, medical books. There was nursing books in my house growing up. And I had no clue that my dad had pursued nursing school. He was laid off in the mill for about a year, either before I was born or while I was still young enough to not know. And he attempted a year of Ohio Valley, which is Trinity School of Nursing today, where we both started our nursing careers. But I had a lot of guidance, a strong male figure, a lot of teachers, a lot of uncles that stepped up in my past. So I think I had my first drink at 12 or 13. It was just kind of the thing to do when you were from a steel town. There wasn't much to do as far as for kids to go out and be active. So we would sneak our first drinks behind the Rider Mart. We were the Weir High Red Riders. And after school, someone might have went in and walked out, had a couple of Black and Milds, which I wouldn't consider cigars. Mm-hmm. And then you got away with taking your first drink and doing something that your parents didn't know about. And it was all fun and games, really. Something that I was still successful in every area of my life. I was, top 20 of my graduating class. It's West Virginia, kind of setting a low bar, but I'm still showing up to all my classes. Had party issues, so we always blame that on our Italian heritage that we were on Mediterranean time. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. So when you say I struggled with being late, that wasn't a first. I think it just got exaggerated while we were working together. And by that point in my career, I had already been living a bit of a double life. I had some legal trouble in 2012 to 2014. I had about 3 DUIs during that period. And, my father and grandfather were killed by the drunk driver. So I carried a lot of shame in my life and facing people that knew my story if they found out about how legal it was. So I tried to keep that on low key. And do you have you even known that about what was going on in my life during that time when I was facing a divorce because of all my actions? So all that was happening while we were working together at that second hospital.
So what got you to the first CUI per se?
Well, I guess I was dating my college sweetheart. And, normally a young guy that is heartbroken would go out and make a mistake like that to learn from it. We were on 20 when broke up, and I had no plans to drive that night. My friends had met me in Pittsburgh and dropped me off at a parking lot to sleep in my car afterward. And I woke up and I was driving in downtown Washington, Pennsylvania, heading on to Route 18, which is the road where my father and grandfather were killed. And I woke up to flashing lights behind me. I guess I ran a 4-way intersection, a red light, and they stopped me right before heading onto that road. So, to me, that's either angels or God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, looking back at my story. And it really was God's grace.
So you're 21 years old, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So up to that point, for most guys are just enjoying themselves, and that's not considered a problem yet. Would you say that at that point that was just a dumb choice on your part to drink and drive?
I would say that especially at that time, if you would have asked me the question, it was her fault that she broke up with me. Uh-huh. I probably wasn't going to take accountability for that mistake, or it was just an accident. Because I didn't intend to drive. I was sleeping in the back of my car when I went to bed, but I was experiencing blackouts probably from 16 onward.
Because of drinking?
Yeah, when I was drinking, I would not be able to moderate how much I was drinking, and I would experience these blackouts occasionally.
Most people would not really develop that type of lifestyle. I would say, I'm just guessing. I actually wasn't curious to know the average age that people may develop lifestyle and drinking alcohol a little bit more than they should. But at that point, 21 years old, most people would say that it's the young buck life, where you're just enjoying yourself a little too hard. You made a stupid choice. But you're saying that you already started having these bad tendencies to see to 16.
Yeah. So the blackout versus passing out drunk. Passing out is you go to sleep, you don't hurt anyone, you wake up the next day, maybe hungover.
Yeah, that's a college thing normally.
I did my share of that. The blackout experience is when you're sedating your mind to where you have no memories. It's like a complete eraser of everything you've said, done, and you could be driving, you could be fighting. You wake up the next day and you have no clue what happened. You have to recollect the stories from people that were there to witness. Sometimes it was a funny story. Sometimes it was, you taste your cousin last night around the campfire. Sometimes it was, I hadn't wrecked any car at that point. But yeah, you just never knew. It was like a game of rushing you that. Yeah, could be badly, could be some kind of jackpot or cosplay, or it could be like the night of your life and great time that everyone's going to remember forever, except for me.
Yeah. So how often were you drinking during the week then, would you say, at that age? I'm sorry, I actually thought you developed this like late, like in your late 20s or something, like after your divorce or something.
So it's progressive. So like the puppy stages and it working and getting through football, all the successes, heading off to college, getting a lot of offers to go to different schools to play sports or just go as a student academically. It was all still working. I'd say without supervision from like strong men in my life, once I was in college, it started to really progress. So if you think you have alcoholism or it runs in your family, there's different like progressive periods in your life where you'll see at the time you're kind of blind to it. You don't know that this thing's accelerating on you. And by the time it's out of control, it's become normal to you. So when I say like I'm having these experiences looking back, at the time it was all normal. It was happening. I wasn't reaching out for anyone for help or advice on how to drink less. It was just part of my drinking. I thought everybody drank like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my friends and people I surrounded myself with were heavy drinkers. Mm-hmm. And by the time, college, my mom, while I was at West Virginia University, developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it changed the course of what I was doing with my young life. It wasn't just drinking Thursday through Tuesday or maybe having a day or two off to recover at WU. I withdrew from classes. She was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
At what age you think?
I just took my sophomore year at WU. So I made the decision to leave college. I wasn't getting much done. I was under excelling in my academics. So I was going to become a brewmaster. Actually, I was working at the brewery on campus. I was very passionate. Anything I get into. So this was God again, I think, redirecting my life. And I moved back to her house, my childhood home, and where she was getting cancer treatment up in Pittsburgh. And I would go and see the men that would take care of her as nurses were great with her personality-wise, cracking jokes, good IV skills. And I was like, I could do this. Why would I want to help people? Why wouldn't I want to do a career where I could use my people skills, my knowledge base? I always loved anatomy and life sciences all through high school. So I enrolled in like a community college in my hometown and got into the nursing program. Had to do like a year of prereqs and correct some of the grades from WU. I always like list on my Facebook site that I studied fermentation science at the WU. They didn't offer that degree, but I tried.
So at this point, you had a DUI in your record, poor grade, but you did what it took because you were so impressed. And yes, you have a family background of medical people. And so you went for it and you got in.
Yeah, and after that DUI, I did have a lot of remorse. And I went to my brother. He's kind of, always been my spiritual advisor. He had a radical spiritual awakening at age 19. And he just kind of surrendered. We were in a prayer group at a local church. And he felt the Holy Spirit, and he had a chip on his shoulder through life and a lot of like internal anger from the loss early on of our father. And a lot of that was healed through his awakening and like coming to know Christ. And I witnessed all that and saw him go through his change and saw the miracle that was working in his life. And, you know, he had empathy for me in making the mistakes I was making. And like, you probably have a younger brother and you're older and younger. So, you know, when you try to see your younger brother make mistakes and try to help him, my brother was always there for me. And he had me go to a youth group at a church that he was attending. And I stuck with that for 7 months, and everything was heading in the right direction. I was finding a spiritual solution to my struggle. Mm-hmm. And I got into the nursing program during that time, finished my first year in the program as a model citizen. And I do remember calling him after we passed our finals the first year. The whole class was kind of celebrating, planning a night out. And I had been sober this entire, like, 2 semesters of the first year of nursing. And I called him and I said, "Hey, Dante is his name. Everybody is going out to drink tonight at this bar called the Sports Court. And he goes, you can't drink, Anthony." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't drink?" And like, don't tell an alcoholic what he can and cannot do. I will do the exact opposite every time. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going out with the classmates. Had a blast. There was a story where I lifted a girl up that was kind of older than me and like was dancing with her and had her on the side of the pool table. And it was like funny, but yet, oh, what would I not doing this for? I forget how much I loved it. And like just this night out, this epic night out, thinking I could just put it away and go into like the summer semesters where we took classes and then finished my second year strong. And it really just started to back up. I opened Pandora's box up, and from the first year to the second year, my grades were still good, but I was a problem child. The whole second year of my associate's degree in nursing, like, barely squeaked through. You know, had a different set of rules than everybody else, showing up to class when I wanted to. A lot of the issues that come with the drinking lifestyle, if you have issues with alcohol, were there and present. I did graduate, and then I started at Trinity in 2007, and that's when you came on shortly after. What year did you actually start? It was probably 2009.
Okay, 9. Up here, early in January or February, 2009. February, because the market crashed in 2008, and they just started a job freeze the second week of February. I am so lucky that I got in just before they started the job freeze. Like, they were waiting for my NCLEX results, and I got them back, and I passed. And the week following, job trees all across the tri-state area. So I was very lucky. Even as a nurse, you couldn't find work. So that's where we saw each other at. And then, okay, continuing for you, when did you get married then?
Okay, this is kind of corresponds with the whole lifestyle of my second year of the program. The summer coming into the second year, I was supposed to be doing like nursing care plans, like on IV scales. Mm-hmm. It was like an all-summer project that I had time to get done, but I was in like the last week before I had to have these things turned in. And that's procrastination, huge part of my character defect list. And I was DJing at a local bar. My brother left his equipment for DJing, and I was usually drink during these events and would, you know, have a good time with the crowd. And that night I was like, I can't drink. I have to get home and do this work. I'm all business that night, and just like I have all my equipment cleaned up on time. I'm getting my payout at the end of the night from the bartender, and like all the kids like graduated, rolled in, and this girl was looking excellent, and she had a tank top on, and I didn't see her in years, and it ended up being a girl like I'd known since 6th grade, but like mama, like not the ugly duckling that turned into a swan.
You said it, man. Yeah. Okay, like, yeah.
She had braces, and I never looked twice at her. She was on the self line. I was a varsity football player, and then like I see her with a group of my peers that like I was really good friends with, and she was rolling in with them. And my car was packed up, and I figured I got to stick around and have the drinks. So my friend figured I hadn't seen anybody in a while, knowing I had responsibilities, and we started our fun roller coaster ride of a chaotic relationship. And yeah.
So we could, so you get married, let's say, you start having kids. And
Not in that order, but yes.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, I had to call my Italian grandmother and tell her while I was in the second year of nursing school that we were expecting a child together. And I found that out after graduation. And I think I put all summer off knowing that I was going to have responsibilities and kids were going to be my commitment to completely change.
So it perked you up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited to have a child. God's timing, God's plan, not mine. But the thing about it was that I put off nursing all summer. Like I passed my boards in May, and I'm just dragging my feet of like starting a nursing career. I'm working at a bar in Robinson. My ex-wife now couldn't figure out what's he waiting for. And I was just kind of trying to get the last in, thinking like, once kids are here, life's going to change dramatically. My professional career is about to start, but I got as much what I thought was fun in that summer and then ended up starting my nursing career that September of 2007. She was born 12/7/07 with our firstborn, Layla. And she's 16 today. But yeah, we had another child 14 months later after Layla was born, and my son Nico. I had one of each. I was a year and a half into my nursing career, and I was still drinking, but it was like on my days off. Weekend warrior if I had a weekend or 3-day stretch off months, and try to still manage life with children. And
So much better, but you were still trying to fit in your party, Steve. You were selfishly, in a way, not wanting to start your career because you wanted to get your last for Rouse.
That's it. I think the center of the disease of alcoholism is selfishness. So that was just like one more. I was trying to do the right thing by getting it the wild oats that summer. But at the same time, making a commitment that I couldn't stick to. Yeah, so I'm gonna hang it up when the kids are here. Yeah, and I wasn't able to. But it was still, I was a functional heavy drinker at that point in my life. I was never a chemically dependent alcoholic. And doesn't justify it.
Okay, yeah, I'll ask you what that means in a bit. Let's just take this moment to thank not our sponsor, but the business
sponsor. He has 38 years.
We will end towards the end. Let's see that towards the end. But we really want to thank the Chesterton Cigar Bar downtown, all the owners, all the effort that they put in to keep it exciting. The different events, they have different cigar events. Sometimes the vendors will come in. They're usually very generous. We learn a lot. We will do tobacco tasting with different foods and talks. Like there was an exorcist that was there recently. That was pretty awesome. And you were there too for that. So it was great. Yeah. So we want to say thank you to them, Matt McCloskey, the manager there, and all the employees of Chesterton Cigar Bar. We thank you. We love you. And we will see you soon there. So let's continue your show. Dude, what led you to your second DUI? Like, how did you get there? Lewis.
Yeah. So what year was it? 2011. It was April 20th, the big 420 party day that I didn't even was never into marijuana.
Okay, I have my phone.
Never my bag. But 420 is like the annual big party day for some reason. It's also Hitler's birthday, but I don't think it correlates. Mm-hmm. It's just like I wasn't ever a big 420 partier.
Yeah,
but I had a plan that night. I was supposed to meet someone. They were supposed to drive, and I woke up blacked out at a four-way intersection at like 4 a.m. with my foot on the brake in the family minivan, wearing on our way. And the guys was probably going into work early. Tried to wake me up. He couldn't get me awake, so he called the police. They woke me up, and there was DUI number 2 in 2011.
Now I know that number 1 you could still pay off in a way, but number 2, what was the consequences of number 2?
So Pennsylvania, if it's your first offense, they give you an ARD, Accelerated Rehabilitation Disposition, meaning you jump through you've had no priors, you qualify for this program where you don't get an offense for the first DUI. Once you hit your second one and you've already been offered an ARD, I could be a legal defense lawyer for any DUI offenders out there in the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So that second one was considered a number 2 offense because they already gave you your freebie, your get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
Where there was a lot less fines, accelerated. You might have had to do some safety highway courses, some outpatient group therapy, things like that, have a drug and alcohol assessment. But by the time the second one rolled around, I just knew I didn't want it to go to court. So I kept paying the lawyer fees, extending. A year later, April 21st, 2012, I got a second one before I was tried for the first one.
What?
So this lawyer, another Italian gentleman, Christopher Capezzi, thank you if you're out there. He got me a 2-for-1 deal. So second and third were 2 second, tried as 2 second offenses as one count. I don't know how that's possible.
Wait, you say second and third.
We're tried as
Your third DUI.
the third DUI a year later from the first one. Almost to the date, I was tried as. God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. Now, my ex-wife did come with me. She cried in front of the judge. I told him about my cardiac nursing career. I was willing to get help, and I meant it to some degree that I knew I had issues with alcohol. I believe on that offense, I asked the police to bring me to a hospital to get help. And they, instead of bringing me to jail or a drunk tank, they brought me to an ER. And they started IV fluids, gave us third total.
Okay. So they must have found you to be very genuine.
I was making a plea for help based on trying to get help. I didn't want to lose my nursing career. I didn't want to lose my family due to consequences.
Now, how did you get into your third DUI then? What was the story with that one? The second one was your foot on the brake in the highway, guy woke you up, called the cops. Your third one is what?
Yeah, I mean, this all kind of blurs together in this chapter, but I'll come up with the best details. I was going from one bar after a 4th consecutive night shift to another bar after morning day drinking. And by the time I made it halfway down the road, I was asleep again when the traffic stopped at a red light. And these 2 women at a CVS drugstore were trying to get me up. They called the police. They followed me to my next stop, and they thought I was a diabetic. I was grossly obese at this point. I was about 300 to 360. I put on 60 pounds with pregnancy and ate what she couldn't finish, and then continued my. I was an excessive beauty across. Not anything I did. If I was into it, passionate about it. You probably heard me talk about my favorite restaurants and food. And
I hate to see you eat during break, but I think
okay, you were into the splash zone.
Okay, wow. And so these 3 DUIs happen. You have your legal issues. You are going through the motions with your wife. I'm sure she wasn't happy with you at all. You're failing people. I'm assuming you're people. You're failing your job, failing with family members. How are your family reacting to all this up to your third DUI? How were they dealing with you, coping with you? Were they making efforts to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're seeing it closer than anyone else. Your family, immediate family and extended family see more of your active addiction and consequences than anybody else. And you're trying to be like an actor. You're living a double life. My nursing friends and world and professional colleagues had no idea. I was in a nurse practitioner program that she finished at Franciscan. I'd gotten my bachelor's the summer of 2012. So during all this time of 2011 to 2012, hitting these legal consequences, I'm still productive as a student and a nurse.
You mentioned double life to me in the conversation a while ago, and I didn't really understand that for you because what you shared was, well, how could it be a double life if you hit a wall? But at this point in your life, you were, what you said, a functional
Drive. Yes.
a functional drug. So that's what you mean by a double life.
The double life, folks,
when you're at work, you could sell, or when you're the dad.
The big book of my 12-step fellowship says we're a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So what's that mean? We're very likable, charismatic, usually intelligent. We're good people when not a saintly jerk. But if you give me 3 days off, and I think I have a window, and I start drinking, I don't know how much I'm going to consume. So that dark side, or that, my mother would watch me with 6 beers in me and ask if I'd been drinking. I would say no. And your mother knows you arguably better than anyone, right? Like, look at Mary and her relationship with Christ, right? Like, my mom prayed for me all the time and just like saw the struggle, and she would look at me and said, like, your eyes look like you're not even there when I was drinking, but there would be a glaze over my eyes. So I think like the term spirits and being somewhat possessed, you're in a blackout state, like that alter ego that comes out is really the dark side that your family has to deal with. So they would like try to intervene with me and help when I was really intoxicated. And they didn't know how to like approach it when I was sober, because after these big blowouts or consequences, like I would function good for 6 months, 7 months.
So I grew up in a family, migrants from Peru, hardworking, like the stereotype hardworking migrant. A lot of them in fast food, restaurant workers. We eventually became truckers, construction workers. But just a cultural habit of drinking heavy, carry on to the weekend events, the weekend family events. And overall, it was pretty good, but occasionally you would see this Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll scenario where usually they were all happy drugs, but you had these one or two get angry, become angry drunk. What for you, were you always a happy drunk, or were you always what happened to you? Did you become an angry drunk, or like?
Well, 9 times out of 10, I felt I was very much more social, like at the party. Alcohol was working for me. It was my solution. More comfortable talking to people, always a good time. It elevated my life. But 1 out of 10 times, I would overdrink to the point of excess to where I didn't know what version was going to come. So it's like you're spinning the revolver, right? Is this one loaded tonight? Is it going to be, injurious towards somebody else? Is it going to hurt someone I love? Am I going to get into a fight tonight? So I've had blackout situations where I've been assaulted and just like 5 guys out the country drinking too much.
Dang, dude.
Total cars, dodge traffic on foot, like running for my life, like on the highway. It's things that like I'm not proud to talk about, but have no power over me anymore, because I was able to find a spiritual solution to my problem.
Okay. So let's catch up from your last third DUI. You give a genuine, it wasn't a fake, because I've heard plenty of stories where alcoholics are good at acting well, but it was a genuine cry for help, and you asked to kind of please take me to the hospital. What happened there after that?
Yeah, I mean, we are manipulators, but that night I was probably one of the moments of clarity in my drinking, like where I had a couple, right? Asking my brother to pray with me the day before my first offense, going to court for that. He stayed with me. We had 7 months of continual sobriety after one until I chose to drink again. That night on the second DUI, so that was April 21st, 2012, I asked this police officer who was taking me in, instead of going to a drunk tank and calling for a ride, to bring me to a hospital. I remember the ER I went to.
Wait, second DUI or third DUI?
Well, these are my 2-for-1s, so third total in the story. And he brings me to the ER, and the nursing staff starts IVs, gives me fluids. I ask for Zofran in the morning. I'm hungover, nauseated. The ER doctor comes in by the time I wake up the next day, and I'm asking him, like, to go to rehab. And they didn't have that resource at that time in hospitals. This was, like, during the peak of, if someone comes in with pain, we were given Dilaudid or morphine, and like, they really sober the drunk up, give them a banana bag, which was fluids with electrolytes, and the potassium would turn the fluid yellow. So we called it a banana bag for the alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so they gave me all that, the whole cocktail to sober me up. And then he gave me a card for a friend that was an outpatient drug and alcohol counselor in Allison Park, Pennsylvania, which was like on the other end of the city. This was out near the airport. And of course, I never followed up after that. But like when someone's ready and they're only asking for help, it has to be like the window's brief. Like you have that clarity. You got to strike while the iron is hot is what I always say about like an alcoholic or addict that wants to get help. Because I had a sincere desire to stop at that night, not just because it was another consequence. I was bewildered why this kept happening. I didn't understand that I had severe problem that was starting to progress. I did. And, I faced all the legal consequences. By the time I showed up to court that time, and they were able to charge me for the two offenses, they lowered the charge they were not felony charges. In Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth, there's actually no felony charge for DUI if there's no injuries. And it's just driving under the influence alone. So I had already picked out a rehab facility. So in August of 2012, I entered my first treatment center. And, I did have a desire to stop. But when I got out and completed this program, they sent me to IMP, which is intense outpatient treatment. And I went to Trinity East, where I was still employed at Trinity West. And the guy that was doing my intake assessment said, "You a nurse here?" He'd feel like the shock when I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, you can't do your IOT here. Everyone's going to know about it. Even the nurses talk." Indeed. So I took, you can't do IOT here as you don't have to do IOP. So I kind of like got out. I think I made it 7 months. 7 months was my magic number of like, without any type of recovery life, I get miserable 6 or 7 months without a drink if I'm not doing an active recovery program. And so, yeah, I remember meeting my cousin for coffee. I was as a friend assistant program still. And we met at the Heavenly Grounds. Do you remember that swell coffee shop having that? And I was like, if I have to be this miserable sober, I might as well drink. In the big book of my 12-step fellowship says, we become restless, irritable, and discontent with life. And the only thing that is our solution that our brain knows for comfort is to have our next drink. And it's so true for me. Without recovery, without working a program, which I can define further once we get there.
So at this point in your life, you moved on from being a functional drug, and you moved on from going for that bottle of beer at the end of a hard work day just to be relaxed the end of the night, to now you don't see yourself without it. You don't see yourself. You can't. You're restless without it.
Well, during this whole time, I couldn't picture my life without alcohol. It was part of my identity. And I wasn't drinking every day still at this point. Like there was 4-day stretches of work, 5-day stretches, sometimes 6/12s, excessive amounts of work to where you can't work that schedule and drink as heavy as I like to drink. So you can't do both. But I would, as soon as I would have a window to go hard, I would go hard typically. Where like once I started, had a window, and sometimes I would do just a couple of drinks after work, but then I'd be late for work the next day. And then you started to see me during this cycle of like trying to balance the two lives, and they were starting to conflict with each other.
You don't have to admit this if you don't want to, but did you ever go into work under the influence?
I always used to tell myself no, and I was in treatment with a group of doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, dentists. They have access to all the good drugs. The dentists, all the narcotics with no control because they're in their office. They are the control. If they develop addiction issues, they get really out of control because there's no one there to catch them or do a count on them to catch them in the act if they become addicted. I had a surgical resident, a podiatrist. We're in this healthcare providers group in a circle, and I remember the lead therapist going, "Would you want a nurse like you taking care of your family member. And I'm like, right, I was like a nurse. Like, just because I'm a drunk doesn't mean I'm a bad nurse. And I like came out of my chair at him. I got really defensive. So the other part of being an alcoholic is this uncontrolled ego. And my ego just wasn't ready to accept that maybe I was an impaired nurse at this point already. Like, if you're hungover, you have photosynthesis skills, in your first line of duty when you get to work is to not go in and get an accurate report, but to make it to the cafeteria to have a hangover helper sandwich and maybe steal a Zofran out of the Pyxis because no one counts anti-nausea medication. Yeah, you might have an issue. So that's as much as I can completely admit that I did have issues of being still smelling like alcohol. I was surrounded with a physician that still, I have a great relationship with this to this day. And you go, are you still drunk? And he looked at me like he knew I was hungover. And I was kind of acting goofy, like lightheaded still, but like she must have smelled the alcohol on me from the night before. And I was on call once, and I remember I being emotional that I was at where I'd gotten into a fight with my wife. It's probably ever drinking, but I got called in. I was probably 4 beers, and then tried to like chug water, sober up, take mouthwash, do all the things to cover it up. And I remember like starting an IV in the patient room and coming out going, did she smell alcohol? So there were times where that was the early signs that like this is starting to, it was already affecting my personal life. Now it's edging into my professional life and all my education goals. My kids are being exposed to fighting because 2 adults are in a house where she had her own drinking issues and mental health issues. I had my own drinking and mental health issues. And so it was affecting the core of our family and trying to, as much as we wanted to have a good, healthy foundation, there really wasn't Christ in marriage. I mean, a lot of self-will, and 2 sick people, we say 2 sickies don't make a welly. It's the cup. What's that mean? Like, if you got 2 people that drink similar styles, we're not going to help each other get well, right?
So you're saying that you notice this pattern about you that when you're recovering, maybe you last about 7 months and we kind of reach this point where it's starting to cause you to shake internally. And that's usually when you fall, when you give in. Is that what you might shake internally? But when you said that, you're going to feel this miserable.
Yeah, it's the restless, irritable discontent take over. My dream needs the solution. It's only known for pleasure has been using alcohol to uplift. And if you struggle with depression or anxiety, like what else can cure like those the ease that comes with those first 2 drinks, which to me is like melt into my chair, I can relax, and then my reward pathway goes off, which is the dopamine levels in my brain, and all of a sudden I want more of that, and I'm off to the races, and I don't know how much I'm going to consume. And normal drinkers never experience that, where they don't have the shut-off valve. My brother's a completely normal drinker. He can buy a 12-pack, and it could expire in his fridge, and I just could never understand the waste of perfectly good beer just to, gum bad in the frig. Like, how old is this? Well, I was visiting him, like, we're at a cookout, like, I bought that like 6 months ago. I'm like,
I didn't realize beer could expire.
Well, it has a shelf life. So if it has hops, you really notice the hops turn. Dave Matthews could be a guest, and the guy starting our brewery locally, and he could talk about the science of the breakdown of the hop, and if it's not served fresh. But yeah, I mean, that's geeking out on it. I was into it. I actually met Dave through alcohol, and then met him through coffee later on in life when I was getting sober, probably the first time. I had multiple attempts at sobriety in 2014 to 2016. I was just at that point of being sick and tired, being sick and fried. And I had already been to treatment once. I had men that were in sobriety reaching out to me that knew me on a personal level. And I would always downplay like how bad it was. They knew. And we're not fooling anybody when we're in that active struggle. And I was working part-time between their jobs at a cigar. and they showed up late for work and didn't open the phone. And I lost the job at this little cigar lounge that I still think today as a consumer. And the owner was like, she just put me in my place. She knew what was going on and gave me a cash payout that day. And I'm still sitting in the shop just trying to figure out my next move. Here I am again, even doing something like non-nursing where I can't keep a job because of my health problems. And a guy that I'd known my whole life, been a professional wrestler when I was a kid in the 90s. So he was from my hometown. He was on TV. It was like a hero figure. I played football with his sons. And he walks in and I had a bottle of bourbon sitting in that cleaned my locker. I had some eagleware with get it behind my chair to look at the shame. Right. And I knew he was a guy that they tried to help me in the past. And he sat down with me and I put on him the mounts and everything in my life was okay. If things were that way. And he smelled me trying to BS it. And after Kelly, he knew. And I got honest with him and we had like a intense discussion about how bad things were in my life. I was going through a divorce. I was living with my mother. I was about to start house arrest. Driving on a suspended license from all these DUIs and never caused her law and order. And he, instead of me using that cash payout to go to happy hour on my way home, would probably overdrink. He said, would you like to go to a meeting, to this 12-step fellowship? And I accepted it. And then he connected with a guy from Steubenville, Ohio that was a white guy from Steubenville that grew up in the projects. And the project houses that he grew up in were the dorms now for the left of criminal systems camping. And he was a comedian that was in the cabinet. And he liked for Kiss Rock and Dave Chappelle. And he could smoke cigars and I could relate to. And he started showing up at my mom's house and hanging out, taking me on rides to meetings, having a cigar, watching a video on recovery, teaching me how it works. That's the saying, like how to get sober, how to recover, the how it works of the program with recovery. And before you know it, I had 45 days consecutive sober. Before you know it, we had me working the stops, the 12 steps. And I made a lot of progress in a short amount of time, and I was offered a nursing position as a travel nurse down in Marietta, Ohio. And they warned me, they were like, you sure you want to make major changes? You're doing really well right now. And I said, I have to take this opportunity. I have to do it. Like, well, when you get down there, you have to connect with this older gentleman. He was an echocardiographer. He did ultrasounds of the heart. And he was a power lifter in his 70s. Really great guy. And I met him, went to a meeting with him. And then I never asked him to be my sponsor. That's what was suggested to me. So I'm kind of back on my own. Like, working down there, they made me a charge nurse in 6 months. I was making probably the best money of my nursing career at that point. I had a relationship. I was happily divorced. I have to say that. What started happening down there was I would make it to meetings when convenient, not on a regular basis. I didn't have a home group. I wasn't helping other guys get sober. So that's basically a program, is having a sponsor, working your own steps. It's going to a meeting to open up and having a home group, finding the unity and the fellowship of the program, and then taking direction and then sharing that message with others, how you recover. And I wasn't doing that.
Yeah. Well, before we continue with your story, I do want to hear a little bit about the root. I know you can't talk exactly about the organization, but the roots of the organization, because it's actually a really beautiful story too. And before you do that, I just want to say thank you I want to say a shout out rather to the National Catholic Singles Conference run by Anastasia Northrop in the Northrop Academy. They're going to be having their conference actually later this month in August. Catholic singles meeting up in Las Vegas. It's usually different destinations throughout the U.S. I've gone to it a couple of times. Always had a great time. Always made great connections. plenty of beautiful marriages that come out of this conference, and some of them even still go just so they could be a testimony to the people that are attending, for giving hope and encourage them. It's a conference that you will find mass celebrated every day, confessions often, trace attending, great talks on relationship building skills, stories, and even a recovery group. I think I'm phrasing it right by saying a recovery group for divorce individuals that are need to go through the process of the no to whatever stage you are. If you are going through divorce, there's also reach out to them there. And then not to mention, it's usually a different destination. I've been to Atlanta, I've been to Minneapolis, I believe, and you arrive sooner, leave later, and it's usually a blast. So shout out to Anastasia Northrop for the National Catholic Singles Conference. Just Google that, National Catholic Singles Conference, and you can find where they host every year. So you were saying, or I wanted to ask you about the roots of this organization. What got these founders to do what they do now with this program, like the 12-step program?
Yeah. So the 12-step fellowship, it's described as a spiritual program of action. They founded it based off of this group that was a Christian-based group called the Oxford Group. It started in New England, and they had certain steps that they did and process that worked for guys to help each other to stay sober. And, the co-founder of the program was a businessman from New York, and that's program. Correct. His name was Phil W. We go by our it's the first initial line in this thing to keep the anonymity of the program going. Anyway, he was on a business trip in Akron, Ohio, and he was in a hotel bar, and he heard the party going on, glasses clanking, just had a rough day at work, things didn't go his way, and he was about to give in to the temptation. Maybe I can go have a drink successfully today. They've been through the struggle of on and off, not being able to stop on the dime. And I could relate to that, to Sappho's story, not being able to stay stopped from drinking. I could stop. I just couldn't continually find a path towards sobriety. So the story is that he went into a phone booth and called the directories, and they connected him to a hospital unit where it was kind of a early detox, or hospital based. They were institutionalized. They really didn't have treatment that was effective for alcoholics. So they would just dry you out and give you psych meds and belladonna treatments and old sedatives. And they actually had a doctor that was staffed to work for that hospital that was struggling with alcohol. And they gave him the white phone number and he reached out and set an appointment with this doctor, Dr. Bob. And he was a GI specialist from Akron, Ohio. So the next day, he stayed sober that day, thinking, I need to reach out and help somebody else. And they connected. And it was one alcoholic sharing his story with another alcoholic. And the two of them founded this 12-step fellowship and wrote a book. And it was founded June 10th, 1935. And they put the book to market to share it, since there was no formal meeting starting at that time. And we referred to it by nickname as the Big Book. You can put it the Blue Book, and it has the titles to prove that. The reason I keep saying 12-step fellowship is one of our traditions to keep the program intact, to never share, promote out during press radio films. It's an attraction versus promotion program. We want people to see the change in our lives by our actions, not our words. So that, if someone I know from my past comes up to me and says, what happened? How did you change? They can see the changes in my behaviors, the way I carry myself, and that I'm not getting in legal trouble anymore if they knew my past. And like today I ran into a nursing instructor from this normal day. She was my OB instructor, my OBGYN instructor. And it was such a pleasant interaction to like see her now where I'm at in my life, and she had how things are going. She knew of my active struggles, and it comes out of you like your spiritual light has improved, and you feel connected to humans. And I would have been ashamed to see her had I still been drinking with a suspended person light. Yeah, sure.
What step would you say was the most difficult?
Well, I think surrender, right? The first step.
What did surrender mean?
Well, that's all the research you do to come to the point that I can't live my life like this anymore, and I need help, God. So we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives became unmanaged. And like everyone else in my life knew that for a decade or more. And then having that clarity that comes through God's grace, that gave me that moment to ask for help directly to God. That was God intervening, doing for me what I couldn't teach him himself. And the last year of drinking, I was on that travel nursing job. I quit doing all the same that I knew had worked for 2 years, with guys showing me how it worked. And I quit the recipes of what they showed me would work for my life. And I went back to self-will. And I was driving home from work, and it was Super Bowl weekend of 2016. And I said, I'm going to use my man card and burn it this weekend. Every Super Bowl weekend, I'm going to have a few beers. And a few beers is what my diseased thinking told me that I could get away with drinking. It's just on Super Bowl weekend. Well, at first it was Super Bowl Sunday, and then it became a weekend. And I invited my best drinking friend, and he's still a great friend. He's just not ready to, like, address his own drinking, whether he wants to or not. It's up to God's timing. And then I reached out to him. He joined me, and it was new lows across the board during that weekend. Things really accelerate every relapse. It doesn't just pick up where it left off. It's off to the races from the get. And like, so Monday came. I had to work Monday night shift. Tuesday I was in training. Wednesday I had a day off, and I'm planning a trip to a brewery in a city an hour and a half away from where I was trapped at that time. It was in a month I lost my job. From that job of nursing the sun, there days this opportunity. I'm in charge, things are heading up. I'm handling probation while being on nursing really well. So for 2 out of the 3-year probation, because I suffered from all those DUI histories, the high form nursing. And then there I was, like, trying to move back home. I conceived a third child during this time frame. What's my ex-wife at the time. So we had a very consistent family planning model. It was we only procreated if we were not married. So 2 premarital babies, 1 postmarital baby. That's my story. Wasn't by the book, but all my buns came out of the same oven, and I've learned how to pray for her and love her as the mother of my children. Through my recovery, I found peace with God of both of my mistakes. I've taken accountability for mine and have been able to find a path of forgiveness towards her and be free. Before I came here, I had my son with me. I met her out in public and dropped him off to her. And no drama, no arguments, nothing like that. Like we would have had if we were both still actively struggling.
So first step, surrender. Second step is
identifying that there's a power greater than me that can restore me to sanity. Came to believe that a power greater than us could restore us to sanity. Who was second.
Second slash third step.
We're making a decision. Made the decision to turn our will, our lives and the care of God as we understood him. So that's in making a decision to seek the power. If in the action part of the program, nature steps 4 through 9.
And I'm assuming that throughout this process, you're working with your sponsor, and who determines when you're ready for that next step?
Well,
that two separates for there's a sponsor or a joint.
it is typically how your sponsor was worked through the steps. So you go around to these open discussion meetings, speaker meetings, big book study meetings, and I was court word to these meetings for a long time. I'd have my sister or a neighbor sign the paper, get different looking signatures on my paper that I had to turn to a relation officer. Sometimes I would go, begrudgingly, and then compare myself that I'm not as bad as some of these people in this room because I was still working and still, quote unquote functioning. I was just jumping through.
You were not an ego. When you say ego, you had ego, a lot of egos.
Yeah, like you worked with me.
You seem cool to me, but I don't know, but it just doesn't turn up on you. I didn't know it.
Well, I mean, you're just always trying to make yourself justified in your wrongs. I could see someone who is pain-seeking for their ID'd a lot and ran out of their home pain medications and identify an addict. But I couldn't see that I had a problem myself with alcohol. I looked at it as two different issues, and theirs was way worse than I was ever. But that's not the case, right? It doesn't matter what the substance is. If you develop an addiction, it's having the consequences. And your life's just not where you want it. You're such destructive. And you have to come to a point of pain where you just surrender and you admit you can't do this anymore. And you think, some of us don't survive our active addiction. So I'm very, very blessed and grateful. And, how do I show my gratitude today for everything that's been restored in my life? And this relationship with God and my friends that are like being your authentic self again and not having to live a double life and run from yourself. It's just a beautiful way of life, and I have the structure of the program as my foundation that has led to like a career path where I work in drug and alcohol. I mean, I always said I would never be a behavioral health person. You got to see it in my psych classes in nursing school. Probably because I had mental health and just couldn't wrap my mind around it. And then, in addition, like, just never say never. Like, start to tap in what God's plan is for your life. Find your purpose. Find a why that means something to you.
You mentioned that it would spring you to not have to live this double life anymore. I could see how liberating that is.
If you don't have to, I sort of quote that said, if you don't want to remember more details, just stop lying. And that's so true, because once you lie, you have to remember what lies you have said.
Well, we're master manipulators. And what does that entail? We believe our own lies, right? How does the devil get to us? We talked about this with that, the exorcist that came, right? How does the devil harm us? It's when we're consensual in the temptation that the devil has harmed us, and we justify our wrongs by believing in some lie that okays it. So you're in a form of denial when you're in active alcoholism or addiction, to where you're just justifying layers of wrong and lies that are lies on lies, and you don't know where the truth is and the deceit started. How did it get this bad? And once you get this moment of clarity through the pain of active addiction, which is pure self-will and selfishness, and then when God comes in and gives you this moment of clarity, a form that I call it a complete God's grace. He just completely gave me grace to open my eyes to where my life was and how bad it had gotten, to where I was able to surrender and ask for help. And I was 405. I asked for, I was flying back from Miami, Florida on a cigar transaction, and I'd lied to my friend about stealing $50 because I'd stole from a college roommate's little brother that fed us free drinks all day. He hadn't given us free drinks all day, and his tip money, I'm stealing out of his wallet because they're making fun of me for eating all the pizza and drinking all the vodka at the party of my last weekend of drinking. And it bruised my ego that we talked about. And I lied about stealing his cats. And the whole weekend, I justified in my mind, and these guys did that all towards me, and I owed them or whatever. I spent the money on my friend, and he paid his friends back, so it was a big deal. It went from my wrong to justifying it the whole weekend, and then we get on the flight, before getting on the flight, I was at a cigar lounge, and I was drinking a Dominican beer called El Presidente. They left about that much beer at the bottle. And I didn't finish it before we left for the airport. And I get to the airport, and my aunt and my uncle, they run a group called Never Alone in West Virginia, which is the support group for families that have lost loved ones to alcoholism or addiction. They offer to help people go to treatment, to be there for the loved ones, to be there for the codependency of the families that have enabled people, to be there for someone who's actively struggling to come get help, and for people who have recovered to share their stories. They meet in a church, and it's a very good organization. But my uncle had survived a stroke where he had a hemorrhagic stroke, aneurysm popped while he was cutting the grass, and he was life-flighted. Kind of had like a whole born-again second chance at life, like had a full recovery. I had seen his testimony that he put out on video on Facebook of his story, and like he's acting out his gratitude in his life now, serving others, helping other men come to Christ in these Bible study groups that he has formed, in a fellowship that he has formed in his church life that he never thought was possible for himself. And I see him for the first time after he fully recovered. They just happened to be getting on the same flight at the airport, and they said, "We know you're struggling, and we've been praying for you. We love you no matter what." And I heard those words and got on the flight, and I sat in the chair. Something came over me, and I told my friend, "I stole that 50 off from your buddy, and, I'm going to pay you back. I know you paid him back already." And he said, "I knew you were drunk, but I had no idea you were a thief too." And those were the words that like cut through all the lies that I was living in. Had sad total clarity. He wouldn't talk to me the rest of the flight. He was very hurt. And I pulled my phone out and had no reception, so I couldn't browse on anything or watch anything, and you were forced to dwell. I put out my text message, and where I got a text message, and I said, "God, I think you made it without a shut-off valve. I need you in my life to abstain from alcohol, and I need you for moderation in all areas of my life. Please, God, if you help me, I will help others." And I made commitment to God that day and surrendered. But I said, "Do it on my own." And then as I got back, I had the willingness, I had the honesty with others, the open-mindedness that the program should need, because I'd seen it work for me in the past. I'd seen it work for others. And I started reaching out to people I knew in recovery now. They helped me move out of my place. They helped me get to my first meetings. I got a sponsor early on, and I just started working the steps as fast as I could because I wanted to recover so bad. And my family was done with me. They saw me facing eviction. My license for nursing had been suspended. My driver's license had still been suspended. My car was impounded. How old are you? I'm 36 years old at that time. Yeah, I have built up 15-year nursing careers. Just completely leveled myself through self-will. A year of that last year, drinking after the nursing license was suspended. So my sobriety date's 11/4/18. And the miracles that God has worked in my life, just went from eviction to a friend who's a Boilermaker, gave me a place to live for 6 months. A friend that I had harmed really bad and broke her trust reached out to me to attend Christ Life every Thursday when I was getting sober. I went back to the church she was attending in College Blessed Sacrament, Riversville, and we went to RCIA classes together. My first year sober, I was able to get confirmed. I was the only child in my Italian family that didn't get confirmed when he was in high school still. Yeah. And just coming to know peace again through the presence of the Holy Spirit, being with God. I would walk this dog at Mingo. His name's Dew. It's a big wool mastiff. He would drag my 400-pound butt up these hills. Yeah.
Started with 400 pounds?
I was 405 when I got sick. Yeah.
So what's you weigh now?
I'm a good 285, 290 right now, but I was down to 229 in 3 years because I asked for moderation. I started learning how to just eat appropriately in appropriate portions and not all the time. Yeah, and not graze and just eat for pure pleasure and excess. And I was loveless too, growing up in a Italian household. Grandma would love you more if you finished your third plate of pasta. and everything else on the table she put out. And so they said that's not reality in the end. But it helps to cut carbs when you're not drinking cases of beer.
And also, if you're having other personal ambition, it helps you with the willpower to also overcome motivation, which is one thing I've noticed throughout life. One thing that a lot of people are familiar with the 12-step program was usually through movies or TV shows. Like, for example, I just saw Seinfeld. They have an episode about one of the characters going through a 12-step, and the chubby guy, creatively named by George, Costanza, is upset that he wasn't apologized by one guy going through recovery. And they enter the whole comic book show. Like, the whole show is in chase with the guy. To like, I haven't gotten apologized for whatever he did to him, but he felt wrong. So, but George Costanza, it's still out there. But for you, what was it like going through that? That would be really hard.
Like the My Name Is Earl showing up to people's doors to like make amends.
Yeah, make amends.
Yeah, so there was a series on TV called My Name Is Earl.
Oh yeah, not
yeah,
that.
Yeah. You know, like how we introduce ourselves, people are like, you know, my name is Anthony, I'm an alcoholic. When you share at a meeting, so like, why are you calling yourself an alcoholic? You're not drinking. Well, I'm reminding myself that this greatest struggle that was put in my life, which was alcoholism, God has turned it into my greatest blessing. So every time I hear I'm an alcoholic, and I'm telling myself that this is my struggle, but yet it's my greatest blessing. I've carried across that God has put in my story to lead me back to a relationship with Him stronger than ever, that brought us like. And the action of these steps are very based on the book of James. And the scripture that I always point out is that faith without works is dead, right? For not putting our faith in what God can do for us and other people into action, where we expect nothing in return, which is complete altruism. And just finding a way to serve God in ways where you're not getting any pat on the backs from yourself or from anybody else. You're just doing it to simply serve God, find a purpose that is selfless. And that fuels my sobriety. So like 4 or 5 are basically compiling all of my life. We call it a moral inventory of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that goes through all the things that would make an alcoholic drink together. So we cover resentments, sentimental, or to re-feel is what a resentment is. Like, imagine if my ex-wife and my story, we went through infidelity in our marriage. I was cheating on her with a bottle, and she had felt neglected in her marriage and cheated on me in return, right? I would only focus on her wrong in that story. I would never talk about what I was doing. And so that puts me in a victim mentality and then justifies more wrongs, right? That believing the lie, that I'm not doing anything wrong, that I'm being victimized. So during this moral inventory, we get to go through a process and share this with another person. It can be a priest, a counselor, a therapist, your sponsor, and you go over the people that have harmed you. And you go over the people you've harmed in your own life. And then you go over your sexual inventory, things you might have done wrong sexually, whether that was coveting someone else's wife, whether that was inciting jealousy within a relationship or doing something immoral. And then fears. Fear is a very big motivator for someone who doesn't address their fears on paper. You share it with someone that, like, you know, it's a tool of the devil, right? Anxiety and fear. Like, God wants us to just trust His plan and be fully intact with the Holy Spirit and be guided by my consciousness, because I know God again, not be in fear. Am I going to make the next pill? Am I going to drink again? You know, all the things I would have normally feared. Am I going to be a failure in life? Am I going to die alone? Not there. Just trust God the entire time, one day at a time, things settle in place. But step 5 is we share all this with, we admit our wrongs to ourselves, to another human being, and to God. There's kind of mirrors the confession process, but we don't consider it a confession. It's freeing ourselves are skeletons in our closet. My sponsor always says, if we take what's hiding in the light or in the darkness and put it into light, it will hold no power over you anymore. So it's just doing that process to get things that we're holding on for outside, trying to manage. We share it with someone else. We bring the problem to light, and then it really takes the power away from it. If it's a struggle with an addiction, whether it's pornography, whether it's drinking, whether it's overeating, closet eating, anything that you're hiding from the world that you're trying to manage on your own, but it has power over you, you have to share it with somebody at some point. And with us, talking to another sober alcoholic is our best policy because they understand our thought process. Like, I need guidance through these steps, and having a sponsor ensures that I do that, and me sponsoring other guys ensures that I'm giving what I've received away to continue the perfect cycle of recovery.
Yeah, and that's part of the hope. That is the hope of doing this interview, is that hopefully somebody will listen to hear this interview, your story, it might be that trigger for them to hopefully put people into the light. That's the whole, and the mission statement of this podcast is to affirm men and to regain the trust lost from women. And I hope that this reaches people who hear it. I'm so happy it's been over an hour and realizing I'm so happy I know you. I'm so happy I know for years. I get to see her weekly, we mingle, you share your stories here and there. You're a bro. And I've seen you in action because across the street from the cigar bar, there's let's just call it like a Section 8, not a Section 8 apartment complex. What's that complex across the street?
It's an old hotel. It's called the Fort Stone, but it's public housing right now.
Yeah. And
a lot of people in the building are struggling with addictions and mental illness.
And anytime we walk out, if we are doing, if we're still chatting afterwards, I seen you interact with them. And for me, my automatic response is usually, I don't have any money or I have nothing to give, I walk away. But I seen you in action, and you do give in whatever way you could, whether it's, I don't know, soda or money for soda, whatever. And your response to me was, you're trying to catch them where they are, and you're trying to see if they're open today, if they're open to your help today. And I found that extremely difficult to agree with, because from my perspective, I'm like, they're just trying to manipulate me, or I'm the 30th person they've got money from that day for their habit.
And it might be true, but that $1 or $5 or whatever I might have to give in my wallet, I went without rides. I went without finances. When I was in active addiction, I would steal my alcohol. I would cross all my moral compass. Like, my moral compass had completely shattered the last year of drinking. And I have empathy because I've been there, and I have to meet people where they're at. And they're still human, right? Like, even if they're in their fallen state, in active sin, I know I can pray for them, that I can show them patience, I can show them understanding, listen to them, and even offer some form of help. And that next dollar might get their last beer, and they might need to do that next research and buy that next Ford logo with 12% alcohol for whatever dollar and change, and it might get them to their bottom. And then they'll remember the guy that they see that has talked to them or given them his card to go get help, and maybe they might reach out. And I just got to pray to God's will to be down there now, and not know that I can't go and save them. I read to be saved, but I can be there if they ever become ready. Yeah. And it's like practicing patience, and we know that God's going to change their heart or give them that surrender moment or that moment of grace that I received. But I also know the people that were there for me in my darkest days, that came and sat with me when I was actively suicidal, thinking about ending my life. I'm just completely in isolation and hopelessness, that someone has to shine a little bit of light in those people's lives. And we can't cast judgment, because it could be us tomorrow. My next drink could bring me to that level, or death. So, like, for me to show my gratitude of what I've been given in recovery, I just have to continually try to be patient with the people that need help out there. And either the role I'm in right now is working for one treatment center and finding them placement at outpatient treatment programs, inpatient treatment programs.
As a behavioral therapist, nurse, or
I'm a treatment advocate is my role. I don't use my nursing license. It's inactive. God has opened up another door for me. And I could get my nursing license active, but I'm just really grateful that I found something. You saw my passion for cardiac nursing, how much I really loved working with patients. I get to do that, but treating them for their addiction. That, like when I was showing up at the hospital that night, asking for treatment, there was no system in place at that hospital to say, here, call this guy. Yeah, he'll get you the treatment. So I want to be there for the next person that shows up in the ER and is ready to get help. How do we do that now? I visit, I think I have 18 hospitals I visit on a bi-weekly basis now. And go work with their case managers, round on floors, talk to patients at the bedside. It's when I'm the happiest. It's really wild. Like, I get paid for this? So that's crazy. Eric Espinosa of the Cigar Bar, he says, bro, if you do something every day that makes you happy and they pay you for it, you're living the best life. Yeah. And it is. You're living in I would do it for free if I could afford to do this for free. And like my personal recovery is the time when I get to do that for free. And this is not a replacement. My career is not a replacement for my personal recovery. The foundation in that 12-step fellowship just brought my family relations back in and making those direct amends. And you said the word apology when you were talking about the Seinfeld episode, like George demanding an apology from somewhere. It's admitting my wrongs, taking accountability for what I did wrong in the situation, and then extending my half of the bridge towards like an olive branch. An amend means to change, right? An amendment changes the Constitution. And is me voicing the wrong in the past and then voicing what can I do to make it right. Not just, I'm sorry. Because I said I'm sorry to 1,000+ people in my life and then I would continue to do the same wrongs. Right now it's, here's what I did wrong, identify it, and what can I do differently moving forward, or how can I make it pass right? And sometimes they say, we're just happy to see you doing well. We were all scared what you were going to do next to fall further. And then sometimes they don't accept that. And it's okay because I've done what I can on my end. And like we practice the Serenity Prayer and the Lord's Prayer after every meeting. So I have 2 foundational prayers in my life. And then there's like a 3rd step and a 7th step prayer that go with the prayers. There's spiritual principles with every step. And it's just such a good design for living for anybody, but alcoholics, it really keeps us connected to the source, which is the God and understanding. Why do we say it that way? Why don't we say the Trinity? Well, the Trinity is my higher power, but I want this program to be available to someone who is struggling with alcoholism that's Buddhist, or someone that is completely agnostic, or someone that is an atheist and says there is no God. We have to meet them where they're at and then just plant this little seed for them and show them through our actions. How does God want me to carry out my life today through these practicing these principles all over my affairs? Yeah. And like prayer and meditation, daily, a daily surrender prayer. God, please keep me sober. Thank Him at night for my sobriety. And I'm not perfect with any of them in my life, but man, it's so much better than it used to be living on self-will. Trying to see God's will is the goal. And being there for you and all my other friends. And then asking for help when I need it from my own friends or from my sponsor, from my boss, admitting when I'm having a bad day or I'm just depressed and I need help, or a mental health day. Mm-hmm. Like when you admit your weakness, it's your greatest strength. And it's hard to do that because we're tough, right? Italian, Latino, we want to be tough men and like carry on that hardworking tradition of the example set, but it's okay to admit weakness sometimes. Yeah. Because God's going to turn our very struggle into the silver lining that it's all glory to God. He's going to put that struggle, whatever it is, it's a closet thing that anybody out there is struggling with. It's He's got a plan for your life. And just know that.
Yes. If we, just to finish up here, what would your message be to somebody who's struggling right now, who's needed it? If you could look at the camera and just talk to them directly, what can you say to him or her?
So, I would allow you to have self-will because God gives us self-will. And if you're not ready, it's okay. And if you're ever ready, reach out to someone that cares. Everybody's waiting for you in your circle. You may think no one knows you have a problem. But just the minute that you say you need help, just wait till the amount of people that are there to help you. My sponsor says, ancient Chinese proverb, I think is how he puts it. And he says, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that's how it was in my story. When I was ready to absorb the message of how you can recover, people came out of the woodwork to help me, and I'm forever grateful. And the only way to pay that forward is to help the next struggling person with alcohol. So, reach out. Yeah. Reach out to Papi.
Is there a national hotline that somebody can call that I could put on the YouTube channel? Is there a number, or is there something that they can call if they're ready to reach out?
Sure. I mean, there is, of course.
Well, I'll get those resources from you, and we'll include it in the channel, and just something, because if they watch this and they have that moment of clarity, so it could be available to them.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't want you to be bombarded. I'm willing to share my personal information if it may be.
We'll see. We'll talk about
how to do this.
Yeah.
Because that's what I do. I mean, I place in 3 states right now, but I've worked for treatment center with 18 locations. I have relationships across the country, out of the country, of how to get into treatment down in America. Yeah, there's some programs down there. I've helped veterans. I've helped civilians and union guys and nurses and doctors get to treatment, and it's just a beautiful thing when being there for other people when they're ready. Mm-hmm. So yeah, get home. It's progressive, it's chronic, and it's deadly if left untreated. So don't wait.
Dude, I'm happy I'm your friend. I'm happy you're my friend. I'm happy we know each other, and hopefully we can do some good through this episode, and let's keep on doing God's work here.
Yeah, thanks for letting me share my story. Then love you, brother.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this show on the Papi and Chulo show. Until next time, God bless.